This video today is a for sale by owner training on how to handle for sale by owner objections as an agent when you're approaching for sale by owners. Now, I've been in the business here for 10 years and I can honestly say that the first 4 years that I was in the business, a very significant portion of my income came directly from this lead source. I know a lot of agents maybe don't call for sale by owners because they're afraid of what the for sale by owner might say. They're afraid to get rejected. They don't want to make cold calls. And what I will say is that if you do learn how to list and sell for sale by owners, it is always going to be a great source of leads for listings, which is the name of the game. But at the other end of the spectrum, if you ever need a sale in this business, it takes a long time to get paid. But when you learn how to list and sell for sale by owners, it is one way that you can get what I call right now business, because they need to list and sell their home right now. And don't overthink it. For sale by owner leads are just like any other lead. When you approach a for sale by owner, think of it like this. If you get a sign call, you might get 5 sign calls. You might get 10 sign calls that week. And when you're on the phone with a sign call, all you're really doing is asking really good questions to determine whether or not this person is a good lead or a qualified lead or somebody that might fit your business as a person that you could potentially do business with. Now, when you're calling for sale by owners, the only difference is you are the one making the calls. It's exactly the same process. Not every single for sale by owner is a lead. And that's one of the maybe wrong approaches that realtors have. When you're calling for sale by owners, all you're doing is sorting and searching through to find out which ones, if any, might be a fit for you and your business, for somebody that you might follow through with and follow up with and potentially become a great client of yours. So I've actually written down a few things that I think are essential when approaching for sale by owners. Number 1 rule, never make them wrong. No matter what their approach is, they are not wrong. The customer is always right. Number 2, as I'd mentioned before, it's the same as any other lead. Don't overthink it. Treat them the same way that you would if your best friend called you to list their house for sale. And if they're giving you objections, think of it the same as if your best friend was giving you the gears a little bit and you had to have a professional response to what they were saying. Number 3, know when to get off the phone. Some people you simply cannot help. And number 4, if they have an agent, respect that. One of the reasons why agents don't want to call for sale by owners is because they don't want to be that pushy salesperson. If they have an agent, call a spade, but that can also be an objection, which we'll get to a little bit later on how you could handle it, whether they have an agent or don't have an agent. Sometimes they bring up a little bit of a smoke screen, pretending they have an agent because they're testing you to see how good you are. Now, it's also important to know there are 4 different types of for sale by owners. Number 1, people that don't know where to turn and they're a little bit early in the process, so they just put their house up on Kijiji or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace to see what happens. And if you call these people, you might just so happen to be in the right place at the right time and they will work with you. Number 2 is people that are just looking to save a buck. Sometimes these are just generally discount shoppers or value shoppers, or maybe investors or home builders that are just trying to save a buck. And if you can present your value, there's a good chance that you might be able to work with these people. Number 3 is people that might have had a bad experience with an agent in the past. But if that is the case, this is your opportunity to be the hero. You might be able to be the exception to the rule of how they see things for how agents operate if you can earn their trust and follow through in a way that helps you stand out. And then number 4, these are the people you need to be able to identify when to get off the phone, because no matter what, some people you simply just can't help them. Some people are so bitter towards the real estate industry for whatever reason that they would rather lose money than work with an agent. And when you get on the phone with these people, 2 things you need to remember. Number 1, this is not most people, so don't let that stop you from making your next call. Number 2, don't get caught up in the emotions. Just have that mindset. Don't go away mad. Just go away and nicely, cordially, politely get off the phone and move on. Don't get caught up in the turmoil. That's where some people sometimes get caught. Now let's dig into it. By the way, the reason why I'm not getting into for sale by owner scripts per se today is because you can can follow a script, but the purpose of the script is to make sure that your conversation leads in a direction where you can set an appointment or a sales situation. And you know that a sales process is taking place if they're giving you an objection. So it's less important what you say when you handle an objection, and it's more important that you have something professional and something intelligent to respond back to quickly when they throw something at you. So I've written down a long list of objections today that I'm literally going to go through with you in real time. Some of these I've seen, some of these I haven't seen, and I don't have any scripted response. I'm literally going to read through them and just off the top of my head tell you how I might respond to some of these objections, or maybe 2 or 3 different alternate ways that you could respond. And objections, as I'd mentioned, are not a bad thing. When you get good at objections, it's actually exciting because it's a tennis match. It's a game. You're playing a game, and a lot of these for sale by owners, when they throw out objections, they're testing you. They want to see how good you are. They want to make sure that you are a quality real estate salesperson, and if they are going to work with you, hey, this person caught my attention. If I'm going to hire a salesperson, I want to make sure that they are good on the phone when handling objections. Now remember, objections will fall into one of 3 categories. Are they comfortable and confident with your price? Are they comfortable and confident with the value that they're getting, so the commission? Or are they comfortable and confident in their ability to trust you or your ability to sell the house altogether? So all of these are going to fall into one of those 3 categories. Now, when you respond to an objection, always respond with a question that removes doubt, offers solutions, and leads them closer to a decision. Instinctive reaction when somebody throws you an objection like, realtors aren't worth the money, and you start going into, here's 20 things that I do to earn the money. No. When they give you an objection, the purpose is to flip it around, ask a question that makes them instill a little bit of doubt in that perspective that they just gave to say, maybe this guy has a point, and listen and have it's a tennis match. It's back and forth. So, number 1 on the list is the one that you've probably heard several times if you've ever called a for sale by owner. They say, bring me a buyer and I'll pay you a commission. And I jokingly say sometimes they'll say, I'll pay you a $500 flat fee if you bring a buyer. And then I just respond with, have you considered the problem that might create for you? Now that response, by the way, is something that you might be able to use for several of these objections. And one thing that Dan Locke always says, he's a great sales trainer, he says that if you can find one response to objections that will work with the majority of objections that they give it you, just keep it simple. There's no need to complicate this process. But bring me a buyer and I'll pay you a commission. What I generally respond to this is, I don't have a specific buyer in mind for the property, but I do know what it would take to find a buyer and get them to pay top dollar. And at the end of the day, isn't that what you really want? So there's the question, right? At the end of the day, isn't that what you really want? That's another really great way to wrap up a quick response to an objection that they give you. And then we can save money by not paying your commission. Have you considered the problem that might create for you? Well, you could save money by not paying the commission, but in this market, it's not just a matter of getting your home sold, it's a matter of getting your home sold well. Yes, anybody can sell a house in this market, but even if you're hiring an agent, the difference between a good, solid, quality, experienced agent with good negotiation skills versus a brand new agent, as an example, could net you significantly more money after the sale. Would you agree with that? Yes. Well, then would you agree that selling it on your own by owner could be a significant difference versus hiring a powerful agent like myself, a great agent like myself, an experienced agent like myself, right? Next on the list is realtors aren't worth the money you pay. Now again, sometimes when you get an objection, they're just putting a comment or a perspective out there of how they feel. So for that one, I might respond and say, have you ever worked with a real estate agent in the past? Because to me, the place where they're coming from when they say this is coming from a place of, I'm bitter towards real estate agents. And if they are, maybe they've had a bad experience, right? Maybe they fall into that category. So if they say realtors aren't worth the money that you pay, that's an opportunity for you to empathize with them if they might have had a bad experience with an agent in the past, and or if they don't believe that realtors are worth the money that you pay, you might be able to educate them a little bit, but don't spend too much time. You've always got to return it to a question. So have you worked with a real estate agent ever in the past? Interesting. What did that agent do? What did that agent agent do that you liked? What did that agent do that you didn't like? What would you expect the next agent to do if you ever did end up finally considering hiring an agent? We already have a buyer lined up. Great, I hope it works out. If it doesn't, would you be open to considering the idea of using an agent if and when the time is right? And so, oh great, or what you might be able to do, depending on how the conversation's going, if they do have a buyer lined up, I might say something like, great, good luck. Is it still conditional to financing, or have you removed conditions? Or I might say, oh good, great. Well, if there's anything I can do to help from the sidelines, let me know. Did you secure any earnest money? And they might say, well, what's earnest money? Well, do you have a deposit on the house? No, we just have a napkin on a piece of paper. Oh great. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? Have you considered this? So when they say I have a buyer lined up, that's your opportunity to qualify in a sense. Don't press too hard, because if they legitimately do, just say, great, I wish you the best with it. But if they say it's conditional, what oftentimes happens with for sale by owners is that they get a buyer under contract, but the buyer's not pre-qualified, because usually if they are, they're working with an agent. And so it'll get under contract and the deal falls apart, and they might call you back and say, hey, fine, come list my house. Or if you know that it's 2 weeks for financing and you follow up in 3 weeks to say, hey, just wanted to see if you managed to sell your house. They're like, no, buyer didn't come together. Or no, we gave them another 2 weeks extension. Now you already know, wow, yikes. Okay, so they've tied up the property for 1 month. So it's like, you don't want to press too hard, but you want to dig for more information. And if every other agent says, okay, great, good luck, it's sold, but you're the one that continues to offer help along the way, and then if it does fall apart, which does happen, then you could be the person that's there for if and when they need your help. We don't want to deal with a middleman. So again, I think that just comes from the place of, well, that's okay. I totally and perfectly understand that. I might just dig for more information. Well, why is that? You don't want to have a middleman. So I think that one particularly is just digging for more information. So why wouldn't they want to deal with a middleman? We've had bad experiences with real estate agents in the past. I love this one because I just simply openly ask, okay, great. So if you ever did get to a point where you're open to the idea of considering hiring a real estate agent, would you then agree that you would have to make sure that this person is, number one, competent, but also number two, trustworthy, and that they have a proven track record for working with people like yourself to help them get their home sold and closed for the most amount of money that a buyer is willing to pay within reason. Does that sound reasonable? And so that if you were to hire an agent, you would want to make sure that you go that much further to do the due diligence to find out that you work with an agent that is the best fit for you and your family. Do you agree? So it's just like any objection they give you, if you can turn it to a point where if we could solve that problem for you, is that the only thing holding you back in some sense, right? We know our home better than anyone else, so we can sell it ourselves. So to me, this is more of a general feeling than an objection. We know our home better than anyone else. So again, okay, great. So if you were to work with an agent, then you would want to make sure that you work with somebody who totally understands your situation, your perspective, and somebody who communicates with you openly so that all the features and benefits and values of your home are accurately presented to potential buyers when they come to view the property. Is that fair enough? Does that make sense? You're turning it into a question. No matter what, you're always turning it into a question. We don't want to sign a contract. Fair enough. Well, hey, so I like this one. Okay, well, hey, if a buyer comes to the table, you're going to have to sign a contract, I would think, right? You just kind of turn it back around and say, oh, because that's kind of an odd thing for people to say, we don't want to sign a contract. But what that might mean is we don't want to be stuck in a listing contract. So I might even just open that up and say, hey, my personal philosophy, my personal values are that I only want happy clients. So I usually leave my listing contract open-ended so that if somebody wants out for one reason or another, as long as there isn't anything that I could maybe adjust or improve upon, if there was something that could easily be fixed, great. But if things change, I only want happy customers. I would rather lose a listing to a client that is not satisfied with my services so that they can do something else than have a bad review, or ultimately a good client is going to turn into 10 more clients. It's never about the transaction, it's about the relationship. So if I can't foster a relationship with an existing client that's going to turn into a long-term relationship, then it really doesn't make sense business-wise either way anyways. And when you come at it with that approach, you're going to be more genuine, you're going to be more invested in that relationship, and you're going to make sure that you represent their best interests from start to finish. And if I was to even say it exactly like that to the client and just say, at the end of it, be like, does that make sense? Like sometimes it's just being open and honest with people on your perspective and your views and how you run your business. We don't want to be pressured into making a decision. So that's another one. Okay, fair enough. So that if you did end up working with an agent, you want to make sure that you work with somebody who understands your situation, for somebody who is empathetic to your situation, who's going to let you make the decisions all along the way. You want to make sure that you work with an agent who is more of an advisor, that doesn't tell you what to do, that asks you what you want to do, and who gives you advice that might help guide you you in a direction that helps serve your best interests. Does that make sense? Is that fair enough? Right? So again, a lot of these might be because they had a bad experience with an agent, or they don't understand. Maybe they've never worked with an agent. We don't want to pay for marketing and advertising. So I would respond to this one and say, you know what's the greatest thing about hiring me? You don't have to pay me anything until I actually sell your house for a figure that would net you an amount of money in your pocket that you're satisfied and happy with. So if I work for you to 3 to 6 months and I don't sell your house, I mean, yeah, you might have lost that time. Nobody wants that. Certainly I don't want that. But how much are you going to pay me if I work hard for 6 months and don't sell it, right? How much have you paid so far for the for sale by owner service, right? So that's just, again, asking questions, moving the conversation along. We don't think our home needs staging or professional photography. Why or why not? That's just dig a little bit deeper. I understand where you're saying that. You don't have to use staging or professional photography if you're working with a real estate agent. You know, if your property is perfectly staged, great. If you don't want to stage it, that's great. The professional photography is actually included in my services, so it doesn't cost you anything if you decide to work with me and I get a professional photographer, so that's not a concern. We don't want to have to work around an agent's schedule. That's another one. Dig for information. Well, what do you mean by that, right? So that if you do work with an agent, you want to make sure that you work with somebody who completely understands the fact that you work night shifts and you can only show the property in the evenings or whatever it might be. We don't want to deal with open houses. Some sellers don't. As a matter of fact, open houses is only one of several different approaches to marketing and selling property. And although it is old school, there's pros and cons to doing it. It's definitely not our number one strategy. So if you were to work with an agent, you want to make sure that, right? I mean, again, use the same response for everyone if you can, so that if you were to work with an agent, you want to make sure that you work with somebody who understands that you don't want to do open houses. Does that make sense? Right? You're diffusing the situation. And whenever they give you an objection, you always want to respond with, oh, okay, no, fair enough, that makes sense. And then turn a question, right? And then turn a question and keep the conversation going. It's a tenants matter. We don't want to deal with a lot of paperwork. Me neither. That's why I hired an administrative staff person. But guess what? When you hire us, we take care of all that. You don't have to worry about it. And if you have questions about the paperwork, we can either get you set up with a legal person who can help explain it, or we'll take the details and time to actually explain it. We take care of all that. Does that make sense? And I put a little note on RedX. I used to use RedX for lead service, so it's definitely worth looking into RedX. You can also find forsalebuyowner.com or potentially Craigslist, Kijiji, maybe even Facebook, but RedX does a really great job of looking at all the different websites to get you leads for people that are listed for sale by owner right now today as well. We don't want to have to disclose everything about the property. Now, I might dig a little bit more for information on that again. Well, is there anything that you're looking to hide? Or do you just have, maybe people are self-conscious about their house. So again, you need to be a little bit empathetic. Or maybe again, it's a trust factor. If they don't trust the agent to disclose their personal financial information or their personal motivation with an agent because they feel that if they can't trust the agent might disclose that to the other parties because maybe they had a bad experience where that happened in the past. And so again, you want to reiterate the fact that if you were to work with an agent, you want to make sure that you work with somebody that you can trust so that if you are sharing personal information with them, that you can trust that it's going to be confidential. We don't want to have to deal with real estate agents calling us all the time. You're the 10th agent that called me today. And I love this one because it's just like, you know what's the best way to make that stop? Or first of all, I might say, if it's a good conversation and things are rolling, I might say, well, tell me about it. I got to work with these people all the time, right? And they'll laugh. And if they do laugh, then I'll say, you know what's the best way to make that stop? Be like, hire me. And then the agents can all start calling me. And, have a little bit of fun with it, get them to laugh, and just move on to the next thing. I'm not comfortable with someone else handling my sale. Again, that to me has to do with, well, why? Either they feel confident that they know the property extremely well. So for example, a home builder might say this, I don't feel comfortable with someone else handling my sale, maybe because they know their product better than anybody else. So again, if you were to partner, I would use that word, if you were to partner with a real estate agent, you would want to make sure that that agent takes the time to get to know your product really well so that they can effectively market it, so they can effectively communicate all the ins and the outs and the details of what your property has that other properties don't have, right? I have a friend or family member who's a real estate agent, so this is the friend in the business thing. Now, this is an objection. I always say this. There's a difference between I have an agent and I have a friend or a family member, or I know an agent, right? So whenever they say that, I might do one question just to confirm it. I would say that, okay, so that if you do decide to list it with a real estate agent, are you 100% committed to using that person? Or I might be a little bit more layman's terms and say, are you pretty sure you're going to go that route? Or are you open to considering other options if and when the time is right? Or are you open to considering whoever might be the best fit for you and your family? And so that just opens it up. No, for sure, we've dealt with Sally, our entire career, our entire life. She's a friend of the family. We've dealt with her 8 times. If we do list it, we're going to list it with Sally. Cool, leave it, hang it up. leave it alone, right? But if they say, yeah, well, we know a few friends, that's actually why we wanted to go for sale by owners, because we didn't want to upset any of our friends. Well, now to me, if they've chosen for sale by owner over the 3 friends, what does that say about their confidence or their relationship with any one of those 3 friends? If they're all genuinely good friends and one of them is the closest contact and the most competent real estate agent, wouldn't the other 2 still stay friends and understand the fact that they've decided to hire somebody else because they have a stronger relationship with that friend? That's my perspective anyways. So that I might just open up the conversation and say, okay, well, great. Well, I mean, I'd love to be part of the conversation if and when the time is right. If you are looking to, entertain an option of using an agent for whoever might be the best fit for you and your family. And so I always position it as if I am the best fit for them and their family. I always position myself in the question as if I am the best fit for them and their family. I don't position it as, if you're open to hiring an agent, I'd be happy to interview for the job. I'd be happy to be one of the people that you consider. I never phrase it that way. I always phrase the question in a way that positions me as the person who might be the best fit for them and their family if and when the time is right. I'm not convinced that real estate agents have my best interests at heart. So I'm just going to skip right over this one because, again, that's the trust. That's the trust factor. So if you were to work with an agent, you'd want to make sure you work with somebody who does understand your situation and has your best interests at heart. I don't want to deal with the possibility of a real estate agent mishandling my sale. Okay, so that one they might have had a bad experience with an agent in the past. Have you worked with agents in the past? Did that happen before? Oh no way, I'm sorry to hear that. And so they might bring up that they had their property on the market once or twice before and it didn't sell. So essentially it's a for sale by owner that is actually also an expired listing. So that's your opportunity to say, oh great, well what would you expect from the next agent that you choose, right? I don't want to deal with a pushy salesperson. Neither do I. No problem, neither do I. And I always say, put the ball in your court if and when the time is right. If you're open to the idea of having the conversation, I'll be more than happy to be a part of that conversation. And so all you're doing is putting the ball in their court. It's kind of like, they call it the upfront conversation, which is kind of like, part of almost every sales script if you are to dig into it. And that basically is, just so that you might decide to work with me, you might decide not to work with me, I might decide not to work with you, and any one of those 3 is totally okay. All we're doing today is having a conversation to see if it might be a good fit. And it's totally open-ended, no obligation. It's just being open and upfront and honest and say, hey, that's like what I said before. I only want to work with happy clients. And that's genuinely how I run my business, because a happy client turns into a whole bunch of future business where it's enjoyable. If you work with even one person where it's not going well, I don't want any of that in my business. It's just not good energy. And it makes it so that you don't want to go out and earn another client if the clients that you have everything is not going smoothly. And so that usually comes back to the agent and their ability to communicate expectations up front, their ability to be competent, not overpromise, right? And be upfront and honest with people so that nobody's surprised. And difficult situations do come up. But again, you as an agent have to be exceptional at your ability to handle confrontation and to, put out fires, or your ability to find solutions to problems when they come up, and to remove the emotions from the equation during a transaction, and to be the calming force and to be the voice of reason during a real estate transaction. Now, when they say, I'm not in a hurry to sell, that might just simply mean that their motivation isn't high enough. And as we'd mentioned before, not every for sale by owner that you inquire upon is going to be a 10 out of 10 in terms of them being, qualified to list and sell their house. But I will say, sometimes when people say this, if you can build good rapport with this person, that is an opportunity for you to maybe be the only agent that keeps in touch with them long term. And if you do have a great conversation with them, put them in your database and then follow up with them consistently. Because I've had this happen before where I recognized that there was motivation, but the timing wasn't right for them right now. I kept in touch with this person. They became one of my best past clients. I think I've done 12 transactions at least with them and their family. And so it's been a huge, huge win just because I built that rapport, kept in touch, put them in my database, and move on. It's not about how you meet people, it's about how you treat people. And for sale by owners, it's just one source of business when you're approaching, picking up listings or sales. I don't want to deal with strangers coming into my home. So to me, if that's what their objection is, I would say, well, you got your house listed for sale by owner. If buyers are coming to your house, do you know every single buyer personally that comes to your house? Well, part of the process, right? But hey, have you considered the fact that if you were to work with an agent, you've at least got a professional governing body and a lockbox system that helps keep your property secure for people that are coming and going in your house, right? Does that make sense, right? Or just dig a little bit deeper as to, why they feel that way. I want to be in control of the sales process. Great. So I want to work with clients who know what they want. And when that's the case, you're the one in control. I'm just here to serve. So if you were to hire an agent, you'd want to work with somebody who understands that. I assume, if I'm hearing that correctly, right? We've sold houses ourselves by owner in the past, so why not? Well, you know what? When I was a new agent, I remember calling on for sale by owners and I was so nervous. And I talked to somebody who gave me that objection and they said, we've sold houses ourselves by owner in the past, so why shouldn't they? Or they said, I've sold 4 houses by owner in the past myself, so why should I hire you? And I was a brand new agent and I hadn't sold any houses yet. And I was like, hey, good point. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Click. And I hung up. So my point in saying that is, first of all, I've been there. And second of all, the only objection that you can't handle is the one that you have in your own mind, that you believe it. If you believe it to be true, you cannot handle it. And remember, there is a difference between an objection and a condition. A condition might be, we have no means to close the sale. If we hire an agent, there is literally not enough equity in the property in order to hire an agent. That's a condition. If you can dig a little bit deeper to find a solution based on what happens if it doesn't sell, etc., maybe a short sale scenario, maybe you can be the one agent that digs a little bit deeper. But if there are literally no options for them, that's a condition. If they say, I need to, I'm not the executor, I'm just the liaison working for, then you have to talk to the decision maker. That's not an objection, that's a condition, right? So it's like you're not talking to the decision maker. So a condition is something that you cannot change. An objection is something that you can handle while you're there with them on the phone. They want to set their own price. Have you considered the problem that creates for you, right? Would you at least be, how did you determine your price, right? On and on that goes. So your ability to handle objections is more about having a quick and intelligent response rather than knowing exactly what to say. Let's keep going. I don't want to share the proceeds of the sale with a real estate agent. Well, okay, so if you were to hire an agent, or I might say this is one of my favorite ones, great, that's exactly why I wanted to call, is because I was wondering if I could actually net you exactly the same amount of money or more than what you'd be looking at selling it on your own. Is there any reason why you wouldn't at least be open to the idea of considering hiring a real estate agent if and when the time is right, right? And they say, oh, well, yeah, but so hey, if you could net exactly the same amount of money or more than what you'd be looking at selling it on your own, is there any reason why you wouldn't at least be open to the idea of having the conversation? I'm confident I can sell my home quickly on my own. This is where you'll only get this one if the property is new on the market and they have 5 showings this week. But it's okay, great, cool. Then this might just be your opportunity to build a little bit of rapport, give them some advice, and then follow up a little bit later down the road to see if it does manage to sell or if it doesn't. Again, if it's right place, right time, if they are literally confident, you want to be, again, you don't want to be that pushy salesperson. And again, they are never wrong. So all you want to do is say, it totally makes sense, great, cool. How's it going? What's currently the scenario? If there's ever anything I can do to help, even from the sidelines, feel free to reach out anytime. I'd be more than happy to help. I want to be more involved in the selling process. That's great. So that's kind of the same thing as I want to be in control. So I want to be involved. So some people might think that when they hire an agent, they lose control, which is 100% not the case. Agents are simply advisors and the clients are the ones making the decision. We're just here to help. I want to avoid being tied down to one agent. So that I might dig a little bit deeper and say, well, why would that be? Have you considered the problem that creates for you? Are they all working for you or are they working for the buyer, as an example? Does that make sense? And if you're working with 3 different agents, those 3 agents are looking for buyers for you. If you work with one agent and you hire them to list your property for sale, you now have access to every single agent on the MLS. Does that make sense? Right? I want to avoid being pressured to lower my price. I totally understand that. So then if you were to hire an agent, you'd want to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident with the price and that it is priced at a place where you feel like you're not leaving money on the table, but at the same time, it's competitive enough to at least get showings and offers. And then once your property has been exposed to the market and the market has responded to it, only then might you consider where you're positioned in the market. Does that make sense? Yes. So either way, no matter what you decide to do, you want to make sure you have an agent who's going to keep you updated as to what's happening in the market, because as you know, market goes up, market goes down. Neither of us have control of that. All we can really do is follow it closely to make sure that we're positioned at the best we possibly could. I want to be in control of the negotiation process. Great. That's exactly why I wanted to call, because us as real estate agents, yes, we have negotiation expertise so we can advise you as to what you could do, but I always like to work with clients who are very strong on their negotiations, because Whenever a client comes to me and says, what do you think, Chris? Let's do whatever you think, I say no. It's your decision. Here's my advice. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is your home and I'm just the advisor. But when it's somebody who's strong, if things go well, things don't go well, they're 100% in control. I am there to service them. I am the liaison. I can add my 2 cents, but if it goes well or doesn't go well, it's totally on them. If they're confident with their ability to present that, I feel that much better because I'm here to serve what they want to do and they know what they want. I want to avoid potential conflicts of interest. So I would dig a little bit deeper and say, well, I don't understand what you mean by that, right? Conflicts of interest. Well, if you hire an agent, all they want to do is sell your house. Well, isn't that what you want? So you want to make sure, I think where the disconnect might be in that is that, again, they don't trust that the agent might have their best interests at heart, which is trust is ultimately important with this. I want to avoid being pressured to accept an offer. Well, that's great. At the end of the day, I want to put you in a position where you can get offers. And if you're not happy with the offer that we get, you can always say no, 100%. I want to avoid having to pay for additional services. Well, you know what's the best thing about hiring me is that you don't have to pay me anything until I actually sell your house for a net dollar figure that you're happy with at the end of the day. And isn't that what you really want? I cover all of the expenses up front until hoping that we can sell your house. So if I work for you for 3 to 6 months really hard and I don't sell it, how much do you have to pay me? Exactly right. That's why it's a really good partnership to work with an agent so that they can take on all the marketing costs. They can invest their time into working towards getting your home sold, and that we're here to serve you with an offer that, if it makes sense to you, will help you sell your house for a dollar figure that you're happy with and a timeline that you're happy with. And isn't that what you really want? I want to maintain privacy and security during the selling process. So as I'd mentioned before, when you work with a real estate agent, you actually have access to a governing body who helps keep realtors to a specific standard, and we work with the lockbox access to the property so that every single real estate agent actually has a criminal record check in order to become a licensed professional, and you do have a licensed professional escorting buyers through your house. So doesn't that make sense? Wouldn't it make sense to have that type of security working with you and for you when you go through the process of selling your house? Or I might ask questions and say, why is that a primary concern for you? Have you had concerns with that in the past, right? Privacy and security. Again, it's trusting the process, trusting the agent, trusting the industry. It's a common element of trust. So it's your ability to earn their trust. So I want to avoid having to disclose too much information about my home. So now, maybe they're trying to hide something. Maybe there's a defect with the property. And again, if that's their intent, then that might be more of a condition than an objection. They might say, hey, I have a concern about my property, and maybe they're self-conscious about it. And if you handle that and say, really, that's actually not much of a major concern. We deal with properties like that all the time, and here's how we overcome it. Or it might be something where they don't want to disclose too much information to the agent because they don't trust that the agent has their best interest at heart, like what we'd mentioned before. And so that's what he said about earning trust is super important. I don't want to work with someone who doesn't understand my needs or priorities, which is again what we talked about a few times before. So if you were to hire an agent, what it sounds like to me is that you want to make sure that you work with somebody who does completely understand. So you're reiterating back to them and then moving on, right? Because again, you're just making it simple so that if you could overcome that, is that the only thing holding you back from working with an agent? Well, no, actually it's something else. You can move on and move the process forward. I want to avoid being tied to a specific marketing strategy. This is a great opportunity to ask them, well, what is it that you're looking for in a real estate agent? If you were to hire an agent, obviously you'd want to hire somebody who's doing more to market the property than what you're currently doing by owner yourself. So if you were to hire an agent, what would you expect the agent to do to get your home sold? And then you just get their perspective and you make sure that you respond with a solution to whatever their problem is. I want to avoid feeling like I'm just another client on a real estate agent's list. Now, I'm surprised that this does come up, but I think it's more so from agents that treat things more transactional and less relational. So again, you'd want to make sure that whoever you work with is invested in the relationship and who wants to make sure that they're taking care and attention and detail into every part of the transaction to make sure that you are covered and to make sure that you know that the person that you're working with has your best interests at heart and is taking the time and care and attention with what they want to do. I want to avoid unnecessary expenses like staging or professional photography. I want to avoid dealing with an agent who doesn't have enough experience. So again, I've been in the business now for 10 years and XYZ. If you were to hire an agent, you'd want to make sure that you do hire somebody who has experience. How much experience is enough experience? And if you are a newer agent, you say, well, do you have experience with an agent before? And if you did, was it a newer agent? Did it go well? Did it not go well? So if I was a newer agent, I might say something like, so if you were to hire an agent, even if it was a newer agent, you'd want to make sure that that newer agent has all of the support from somebody who is experienced to make sure that you can be serviced to the highest possible professional standards that there could be. And then you could also talk about the benefits of hiring a newer agent in a sense where you're going to get concierge style service that you'd never get from an experienced agent, but you still get the benefits of having an experienced agent to back me up. Thanks for being here today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on this video next.